According to my watch, it's a few minutes after 4, and we have a fair amount of business to take care of this afternoon. So if you all take your seats, I'd appreciate it. Officer of the day, please reopen the altar. No, this is just an altar reopening. You don't need, we did the flag thing already. We're not redoing that. Just for some reason, we closed the altar for recess. So we're back in session. Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, I would like to call on past National Commander David Magnuson to go over the convention rules.
Most of you have been to this convention many times over. Yesterday, the Rules Committee met. We snuck out from bylaws and Constitution. They were waiting there. Basically, the rules are the same as they've always been. They've been posted on the walls. Right, Christy? Thank you very much. The rules have been posted. They're about 7 or 8 pages, so we didn't have to copy the paper and throw it away or whatever it is. But the rules, to give you an idea, just to give you an idea, the gentleman from Michigan, the department commander, had said, we basically follow Robert's rules. And he's correct. It's what it says in the bylaws. But the rules say the following, basically. It says that the national commander has the right to run the convention. What was added this year was a little different. It's subject to the NEC. But the national commander has the right to run the convention, as long as it's fair and honest, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically what the rules are. If there were votes, I would go through it. Nobody else is running for national commander, so we don't have to say what happens, or as to post, or who has ballots, and who can vote, and the rest. The rules are posted. If you're interested, they're over there. Again, for all those of you who have attended, there's no change other than that one item that I told you. It said subject to the NEC, and the national commander is in charge. So Barry basically is in charge of this, as long as he's fair and honest. I'm sorry. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, I would ask for the adoption of the rules, as you can see, as you live through, and the various conventions. All in favor, please signify aye. All opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, David. At this time, I'd like to call past National Commander Lawrence Schulman up for credentials report. Or you can do it from back there if it's more comfortable for you, Larry.
Yes, sir.
Our committee met this afternoon, and we looked through our voting strength and our posts. We're sort of disappointed a bit that the Finance Board report that were submitted by posts, only about half of the posts have submitted them. And it's surprising because everybody's had several months to get the information together. The best turnout was the liability insurance forms that were submitted. So other than that, we have about maybe 1/3 of our strength that can vote, because not everybody has sent in all the paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Convention. Yes. But the only couple of things we have will be voice vote, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. Where is past National Commander Michael Berman? Can I change the agenda and do these two other shorter reports before we do resolutions? Thank you, sir. Barry Lachinsky, is Barry here? Would you please do membership report?
Good afternoon. National Commander, past National Commanders, Department Commanders, Department Representatives, Post Commanders, and Post Representatives, full-time career support staff, fellow members from JWB, and distinguished guests. I'm Barry Lashinsky, and I'm the chairperson of the membership committee with the co-chair of Bob Richter. And we have several members within each department. So I want to make sure that I recognize them as a group. They've been very active. They've put together some good things. There's a couple of slides here that I want to show. And for those that were at the NEC last year, they'll remember that we started to put statistics. So every number that's up there has a name, and every name has a face. So I want to walk through a couple of things with you here, but it starts in this room, and I'm going to need your help to carry it down to the department and the post. First slide. We put together a membership statement of what the membership committee is all about, and you can read it. Okay. Now, I picked up from the NEC from last year to the end of July of this year. So when you got your alpha roster, we cut that date, we took the bottom line, it's a snapshot of time of that position we are. So the good news is, very good news, we've gone up a little bit. Okay, there are 53 members that we went up with. And if you question this, I can give you the piece of paper with the names, they have faces, and they have the posts where they came from. Okay, but we still have a lot more to go. As you can see, look at the bottom line total. We went from 10,065 to 10,118. Now, traditionally, during the NEC, you should go up. And during this convention or any other convention, you should go up in strength. And I'm going to show you how it happens. Where you're going to go down in strength every year is at the NEC. The simple reason, by the end of the year, we drop the 3-year individuals. And I'm going to show that to you. During the convention time, we do not, because we got to wait till the end of the year to drop the next year. Okay, does everybody follow that? If I need to make it simpler, please raise your hand, because I've done this enough times that it's so simple for me. Okay, so right now we're carried at a total 10,118. Next slide, please. From the NEC, we started at 10,065. If you look at your slides last year, it's the same number. Okay, there is no smoke and mirrors with this. It's the same number. Our gains are 246. Once again, I have the posts, I have the names, and we have the number. We lost 193. Okay? If anybody needs a copy of these slides, I'd rather you tell me, Barry, send it to me. You can write them down, but I'll be glad to send you the same thing. So it comes out to the 10,118. Next slide, please. Now, this is what I call involuntary is a death. We can't control that. No matter how good your post is, you cannot control it. Okay? So from that time period, we lost 182 members. The next column there, I have no figure because once again, we dropped no 3-year increments. We only drop them at the end of the calendar year. So there was no figures dropped there. We lost them in the beginning. This is where I need your help, and this is where it starts here. And you got to carry this message back. The next year, the end of this year, we're going to start dropping numbers. And right now, and those numbers are the members who have not paid in 3 years. And let me tell you, JWV is probably one of the generous veterans organizations that we keep people on the books for 3 years. But our problem is we have a potential of losing a whole lot. I don't know if you can see that highlight. If you cannot, I apologize. 768? Yeah, okay. We're ready to lose at the end of the year 768 members who have not paid dues in 3 years. Now, that's not National's fault. That's all of our fault. Because we have commanders who are not out there saying, you got to pay your dues. So this is where I help you, and this is where I say it starts right here. You need to bring this message back. Well, Barry, how do I know who hasn't paid their dues in 3 years? Somebody's going to ask me that question. You look at the Alpha roster. The Alpha roster tells you the last year they paid. So we're ready to drop year 2016. I think we can fix it. We have to do it collectively. If not, that asterisk next year will be greater. I'm sorry. Hopefully it will be less than 768. But it has the potential of being 768. Voluntary. And this is where we're doing a super job. Throughout that time period, we had 11 members of JWV volunteering to get out. That's a compliment. One, it's a compliment because the number is so low. 11 people wanted out of JWV. I'm not a mathematician. I can't tell you what the percentage is, but I'd like to see that number 0. We all would, but I think we can live with 11. So our commanders are doing some things. Things are happening in their organizations. But I need your help, and I need to try to fix that 768. I'm sorry, not I. We need to, because we all own this. Next slide. You know, before I talk about the next slide, earlier today, I heard David Magnuson and he talked about Dr. Picard. We have 2 professionals who have raised money for this organization. And they've raised a lot of money. And they go to the membership and they ask to support the events that we've held. And we've got the 125th anniversary coming. So we need to remember that because that's a JWV issue for all of us. So maybe you can set up something within your post. I can't tell you what to do because I'm not in a command position. But maybe you give a member from your post some travel money to come to that event. Because we need to have the bodies at that event. Both of them have done tremendous work raising money. But we need to take that JWV kosher salt, sprinkle it all over our commanders, and we need to have that same spirit and attitude that they have of raising money, and the same spirit and attitude that we have to put our hands in our pockets deeply and come up with that money, to take that, bottle it, and get members. Because without the members, we don't need the money. I need your help. We need your help. We all need your help. So once again, it starts here. I ask you to bring it back to your commanders, your departments, your state. They need to know where we are. And if you don't have the best person in membership at the post level, you're cheating yourself. Okay? If there's any other information and you want to see what's going on in membership, there's our membership meeting. I want to have everybody, if you can, come. If you want to know how your department is doing, we have a slide that's broken out by department. I did not want to show that here because that would take a lot of time, but feel free. Bob Richter put together a great slide document that talks about your department and where it stands. But please, we need your help. And
I just want to add one word to what Barry said. There is no reason to lose people because of retention. It takes a phone call. There are so many of our members that either don't look at their mail and they don't see their renewal form. But if you've got someone who is a year or 2 or 3 years behind, and as Barry said, we're very generous. We don't make them pay back dues. So you can go home tomorrow or the end of the convention and look at the Alpha roster and call every one of those people who are behind, and you'll pick up 80+% of them. Thank you. Next on our agenda, Erwin Burtnick is going to give the financial board report. I'll pass that on to Howard.
Well, good afternoon. Membership, I'm Erwin Burtnick, and I'm the vice chair of the membership of the, not membership, but of the finance board, since the two of us were sort of cut out of the last meeting. The finance board met at 6:30 yesterday, which was sort of an inopportune time, since it was a half hour past the Constitution and Bylaws Committee meeting, which was a very spirited meeting, and most people went to dinner after that. Consequently, I was the only member of the finance board there. Now, Joe Zolden would have been there, but he was delayed 12 hours when his plane had to be sent back due to engine problems, and he didn't get in till late last night. He is the chair. The only person that attended that meeting, the only member that attended that meeting, was Rachel Heyman from Southwest, and she attended as a member of that meeting. And of course, Harrison Heller was there, and I have to give Harrison a compliment on all he's done with respect to the finance board. He's put together probably more than anybody since I've been involved with this, more than anybody has done with respect to an Excel spreadsheet and keeping track of the finance board reports. So I didn't have to look at emails of each report. He had everything put together on a nice thumb drive, which was fantastic. Let me give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at within the finance board. One of them is revising the finance board report to reduce its size. Now, you all know it's a little too voluminous at this point. We want to reduce that. We were going to hopefully get a review of that yesterday, but unfortunately we didn't have members of the finance board there. The other thing is matching funds. Now, we've done this before and it's been announced. Matching funds will not apply to any contribution up to $200. So you can give $200 to a charitable organization. Other veterans organizations, for example, are giving to charitable organizations in the area, and you want to be a part of that, you can be a part of that without matching funds. Matching funds above $200. We have certain things that are certain organizations like veterans organizations, Boy Scouts, things of this nature that do not require matching funds. For any exceptions to that, you should contact the national office. They will contact Joe and me, and we will make a decision on whether that item will be subject to matching funds or not. And again, we have been very generous with that. In some instances, some have been a little unusual, and we have not approved them. But in many cases, we have approved the contributions for various causes without being subject to matching funds. Let's see some of the other things that we were considering. One of the things that we were concerned with excuse me, one of the things we were concerned with is that if you do not file a financial report, as you know, the only thing that happens is that you can't vote. A post can't vote. They don't file, they can't vote. In many cases, the posts aren't even here. As you heard before, a large number of posts have not filed financial reports. Excuse me. This call went away yesterday, has just arrived back again. As soon as I talk on the phone or talking to a microphone. So anyways, we're looking at other disincentives to not filing a financial report. It will not be, excuse me, thank you. It's been a very rough year for me. So anyways, we're looking at other disincentives to not filing a financial report. And we will be communicating those to you. Again, you must file a financial report. You must file your 990N or the regular 990 or 990EZ if you have a sufficient amount of income. And those are requirements for the financial side. Other things that have to be done is you have to pay your liability insurance and your fidelity bond. So we want to make sure those things are taken care of. And again, as I mentioned, Harrison has put together a really fantastic spreadsheet on that to see which posts have and have not done those 4 things. And so that's really great. And let's see. Any other issues? Okay, I think that's pretty much covered the initiatives that we're looking at right now. Hopefully we'll get more people from the finance board. Or is anyone here on the finance board that's at the convention right now that's here that should have been at the meeting last night? You can raise your hand. Nobody's gonna take anything against you. Again, I've had people ask me to be on the finance board we've put on there and they have not shown up. We've got to get more participation. This is an important part of this organization. We have to know what's out there. And if there's any questions, I'll be glad to entertain those. Okay, thank you.
Past National Commander Berman, would you yield the floor for 5 minutes to Past National Commander Ira Novoselsky? I'm sorry. Ira.
Thank you for all cheering for the Super Bowl champs, 53 New England Patriots. And I'm glad everybody has joined us today for the next Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots. So, last January, I was challenged, and we had a bet by someone in the West Coast named Past National Commander Maxwell Kohler. And he challenged me to a bet of who was going to win the Super Bowl. And the winner had to wear the hat of the winning team. Well, guess what? We won. Past National Commander Maxwell, please come forward. No, we already threw that in the dumpster. So Maxwell is going to pay up today. Maxwell's going to pay up today, and he's wearing this hat the rest of the week, guys and gals. You know, not only are we the champions of football in 2018, even though we didn't do it this year, the Red Sox were champions last year. We can't win them all, and I choke on it too. My guys choked. So thank you for your time. Hope everybody enjoyed their day and the rest of the week, and I thank our chairman for the time. Thank you, sir.
It's a good look for you, Maxwell. Past National Commander Michael Berman for the Resolutions Committee.
I cannot imagine what a pleasure it is or will be to see Ira wearing a Yankees cap next year. Boston's only about 14 and a half games behind the Yankees.
But who are the world champions
At this moment, truly a passing fad. So if I could, please, you each got in your bag resolutions. We will be going through them. Some of them have been modified. We will review those modifications. Let me go over some ground rules or some understanding. If you have a cell phone and it goes off during this meeting, you will eat it. So please save yourself the calories. There's, I don't know how many points the cell phone is, but turn them off. Next, if you have any cross discussion between you and your neighbor, or worse, between you and the people 3 rows behind you, take it outside. I have, as I said earlier, one good ear, and it doesn't work that well. We will be discussing, there are approximately, I believe, 18 resolutions. We were able to go through 16 at our meeting. Our next meeting is tomorrow morning, same time, same station. Actually, no, 10:30 tomorrow morning in the same room. We have 2 left, and that is on DACA and the separation of families at the border. Resolutions come from 3 sources, basically. Staff, departments, and from other VSOs and the news media that requires some attention. If you would have noted in your resolutions booklet, we had a cutoff date. That will be honored. I apologize for those that have resolutions that they deem urgent, emergent, and extremely important. They will not come to the Resolutions Committee. You have a right at the appropriate time to bring them from the floor. Sid Lichter did a review of these and did a lot of corrections and work on it, and I appreciate Sid. If you haven't met Christy Turner, she's the lady over there. She did more work than anyone that I know of. So I thank her. I genuflect in her direction. Finally, there are resolutions that have come before this body in the past. They continue to be in full force and effect. Unlike some veterans organizations, our resolutions do not go for 1 year, but to go and continue on unless or until we defeat them or rescind them. Before we continue, I thank again the members of the committee and the other members of this convention that came to our meeting. The input was invaluable. We had lively discussions on many of the issues. Ultimately, we moved them forward. Some required some changing, some did not, but we will now go into them. And if you would please sing along with Mikey. The first one is burn pits. Let me read it because we changed it. If there is, again, cross discussion, even among past national commanders, burn pits. Whereas there is significant evidence that exposure to the smoking fumes arising out of open burn pits that existed and still exist, and whereas these illnesses include, but are not limited to, asthma and pulmonary illnesses, autoimmune diseases, and various and numerous cancers, and whereas the burn pits were and are used to dispose of everything from medical waste, spent ammunition, food waste, batteries, dead animals, and human body parts, and whereas, while recognized that some illnesses caused by the burn pit has yet to be fully acknowledged, the extent of the illnesses caused by the exposure to smoking fumes out of the burn pit, it is truly understated. Therefore, the Jewish War Veterans of the USA calls upon the Department of Veterans Affairs to take cognizance of the scope of illnesses caused by exposure to the noxious fumes and smoke arising out of the burn pit, and to provide all necessary treatment and appropriate compensation. Furthermore, the Jewish War Veterans supports, and we are clarifying the House and Senate numbers that would recognize burn pits as a hazardous situation. Once we have those numbers, they'll be slotted in and they'll be published on the website. Question through the chair. Okay. 191. We had that number in variations up to this point. Yes. Yes. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor? Those opposed? Passed. Remains. Tomorrow, I believe we will have a short, and I mean short, film on cremains. Short defined as 4 minutes and 4 seconds. We don't have that available today. It will be tomorrow. Let me explain in the motion what cremains are. Remains, as defined, are cremated remains. So that everyone understands, is a cremation. What's left, the ashes, are called cremains. We have found through various research, or however you want to put it, that, for example, cremains can remain on the shelf for any number of reasons. Someone forgot to pick them up. No one liked Uncle Sam in the first place, and his remains stay on the shelf. We have found with remains of World War II veterans that were on the shelf for 40 years. Part of the New Jersey bill or statute is that there has to be a due diligence to attempt to reach out to the family. We have found in situations where everyone agreed that someone else picked them up. And in fact, the reality was they were never picked up. We found others where the funeral homes just can't be bothered to research or try to find any survivors. So the bill, the resolution says that JWB basically will work with other veteran service organizations or on our own to recover these cremains and give them a proper burial. with due honors to a veteran. Each state can manufacture their own set of bylaws or rules. I'm only familiar with New Jersey. New Jersey requires the veteran to have had an honorable discharge, and that the burial must be at the state cemetery or at sea. Those are the only two options. But the reality is the purpose of the resolution is to get the remains off the shelf and proper and due respect extended to them. So as you have it in front of you, the only change we made is in the last therefore, the paragraph that says, therefore, the Jewish War Veterans of the USA calls upon the states to enact legislation that would facilitate the purposes of this resolution. And furthermore, calls upon Congress to enact such legislation that would assist the states fund any costs that the states may incur to carry out the purposes of the resolution. That's the only change from as published. Discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor? Those opposed? Abstain? Passes. Next is DACA. You will hear more about it tomorrow. Dental care for veterans. You have it in front of you. You had 24 hours to 48 hours to digest it. Discussion. Seeing none. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Separating families at the border, tomorrow. Housing grants for disabled veterans. The only change we made in committee is in the very, very first sentence. We now have to read, whereas current law, and we took out the word but. This enables veterans who are disabled to have accommodations made to their homes for a second time. The logic being that most citizens of this country today are not in their starter home. Some of us are in senior citizen compounds, so-called gated communities. I think that's to keep us in. Any discussion on housing grants for disabled veterans? Seeing none, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Passed. The next one was maternity leave for members of the National Guard and Reserve. As published, and understand that there is disparate treatment between the reservists, Guard members, and members of the active component. What this does is bring, we ask for a level playing field. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Abstentions? None. Passed. Membership defined. This is not creative. This is taking the American Legion's definition, taking out the word American Legion, adding the word Jewish War Veterans, and plagiarizing and calling it research. Discussion. What it does is it says anyone who served on federal orders from December 8th, 1941 to the present should be eligible for membership as an active member. What we have done over the years is we've not put notches. So if you serve during this period, but not that period, such as 1946 to 1948, but not in the Berlin crisis, you're not eligible. But if you did, now you're going to be eligible. We need to approach Congress, which we're prepared to do. Right, Herb? Thank you. What we're going to do is go to Congress with the same bill that the Legion passed. Discussion.
The U.S. Navy was,
No. Who are you?
Jerry Alperstein, Post 1, New York. The U.S. Navy was in combat from September 1941, not December 1941, engaged in combat operations against German submarines. Remember the Reuben Gay? It sunk. Was torpedo destroyer. So anything can be done to adjust the covered period.
I do not believe that was declared by the government and therefore would not necessarily be applicable. Approaching the microphone, Paul, define yourself, please.
Okay, Paul Warner, Post 69. There is no limitation currently on us as to who can be a member. There had been a limitation that was removed in 1982 that required that 75% of our members had to be war veterans. That's gone. The problem that comes up has nothing to do with membership. It has to do with the deductibility of contributions made to JWV, American Legion, and so on. The current requirement under Section 170C of the Internal Revenue Code requires that 90% of the members must be war veterans. So I think we're kind of mixing two things up over here. The American Legion right now has applied to Congress to eliminate the war veterans requirement.
And we're going to parallel that. Further discussion? Those in favor as written? Those opposed? Passes. Military health care system. As written, discussion. Seeing no discussion, those in favor? Opposed? Passes. This is getting too easy. Right? Monitoring of for-profit colleges. Comment? Discussion? Comment? Approach the microphone. No, microphone.
Scott Wilson, Post 639, Brevard County, Florida, also Department Commander. In committee, we changed from Government Accounting Office to, it's now called the Government Accountability Office.
Correct. I have it in mind, I'm sorry. You can change the first sentence to Government Accountability Office. That's the new name of the GAO. We can wait, Ainsley. Thank you. Yes, it's okay. Bye. The word in your prosthesis for women veterans is spelled incorrectly. It's PROSTHES for plural. I thought we said we didn't vote. Okay, let's take that one. I'm sorry. We'll take that back for a vote. Monitoring of for-profit colleges. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, it passes. Prostheses for women veterans. This is the recent. Okay, and that's the only change. We corrected the spelling. Bob, your wife is looking for you. Questions, discussion on the resolution? Proceed. Maybe in Massachusetts. Prosthesis. Whatever. Those in discussion on the motion. Again, please no side comment. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Passes. Rosie the Riveter. Discussion. Discussion, approach the microphone if you can.
This resolution is fine, but it doesn't really say what the award is, given for, or what the requirements are to receive the award.
It says that the majority leader and the Speaker of the House to immediately perish identical bills and both Congress allowed the Congress to pass bills by acclamation. Congressional approval of non-controversial should be posted. I'm not sure what the issue is.
Chair, the issue is, what is this Rosie the Riveter award being awarded for? You just talked about an award, but not what it's for, or what the requirements are to be nominated.
Okay, so there's a question that this should be rewritten so to explain who Rosie the Riveter was and what award we asked that they present. Is that correct?
I think everybody knows who Rosie the Riveter is, but we don't know what the award is supposed to, what actions the award is supposed to recognize, and what the requirements for that recognition are.
Further discussion?
Chairman, Scott Wilson, Commander, Department of Florida. Without the person who, or persons who actually wrote this, it clearly stands to say that we're asking Congress to recognize the actions of the Rosie the Riveters with a Congressional Gold Medal. just like the actions of a Mickey Mouse or something else, not a specific person, not giving an Ainsley Ferdy or a Dr. Barry Schneider the Rosie the Riveter Award. We're actually asking for the award to go to the Rosie the Riveter character, the person, the ideals behind it. We're not actually giving this to somebody as Rosie the Riveter. That's what clearly I read it as, and that's why I believed it so passionate in the committee.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Joshua Oaks, Post 243, Miami. The Rosie the Riveter Congressional Gold Medal Act, House Resolution 4912. The Rosie the Riveter Congressional Gold Medal Act would award a Congressional Gold Medal collectively to the American women who joined the workforce during World War II, providing the vehicles, weaponry, and ammunition to win the war that were referred to as Rosie the Riveter, in recognition of their contribution to the nation and the inspiration they have provided to ensuing generations.
And I think that's covered in the very first paragraph. Whereas Rosie the Riveter was a fictional character created by the United States government in World War II to highlight and symbolize the contribution of women towards the total war effort. Further discussion? As written. If you don't like it, vote no, and we'll see if we can amend it. So as written, those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Passes as written. Salaries in the military, there were some changes in committee, so let's go over them. Whereas there are members of the American military living below the poverty level, and whereas there are additional members of the American military who qualify for food stamp SNAP and other assistance programs, and whereas the members of the military who place themselves, HARM''S, in harm's way to defend our freedoms and the American way of life deserve better. And whereas the position seemingly enunciated by the Department of Defense is that today's military is well paid, therefore the Jewish War Veterans of the USA calls upon Congress, in consultation with the Department of Defense, to re-examine the salary structure of the military with an in-depth look at the salaries of the junior E5 and below enlisted ranks. Please note the changes. Junior enlisted. Discussion. Seeing none, those in favor, discussion, please approach the microphone if you can. If not, stand right there.
This is looking at junior enlisted must determine this as a when you raise the salaries or wages of your lowest members in the workforce, those that fall in salaries and not raised, you will take action for that to see that your salaries are raised also. So that we need to be aware of that will take place if we continue to adopt this resolution, because otherwise the next level of poverty and so on will say, why should I assume the responsibilities that I have? Because I'm not getting any more compensation for the guys I'm supposed to be supervising. It's a very, very serious economic position.
Thank you.
Jerry Alperstein, New York. The previous speaker is only speaking about salaries. And the resolution, or does not deal with salaries, it deals with the military pay structure. What we're really talking about is the subsistence part of the military pay structure, which goes for those members of the military with families. So that's really what's being covered in this, and not the actual salaries based on ranks.
Thank you. Chuck, introduce yourself.
Chuck Greenberg, Senior Vice from the state of New Jersey. I served as a relocation manager in family services for over 9 years, was promoted to Director of Family Readiness and Services for a 2-star. So I saw the problem firsthand. E5 and below were habitually on food stamps. I even had some of them that qualified for welfare. This is not an officer's issue. I never had an officer appear at my desk asking for financial help. I had enlisted out the door asking for financial help because they couldn't do anything but go to a food bank or something like that to get the necessary foodstuffs they needed for their families. Now, it is a pay issue. It is also a BOQ issue. An entire pay structure for E5 and below needs to be looked at. And if you don't believe me, check the statistics.
Hirsch, 474. I'm sure a lot of you read the newspapers lately, and in the papers, it is stated emphatically that the junior members of our military are not treated the same way that a lot of you who were enlisted were treated years ago. When they come on active duty, they pay for everything. They pay for their uniforms, they pay for their food, they pay for everything that they get. That is a huge change as to the way things used to be. And I would highly recommend that people understand that this is beyond a subsistence, even though that's what we're talking about.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Larry Bear, NEC representative, Department of Michigan. I commanded an infantry company, and I saw the stress of junior NCOs where they're worried about their family. Now, if they're worried about their family, they can't be mission orientated, 1. 2, among my colleagues and senior NCOs, I never heard a discussion where if you help these junior NCOs, you ought to raise my salary, because the salary of even a second lieutenant compared to those, it's not even in the same league. I strongly support this resolution.
Thank you. Last speaker.
Ainsley Ferdy, Post 243, Miami. I keep hearing in the press and hearing from recruiting officers that we see at various military and veterans functions that people are being given $40,000 to enlist in the Army, and that's at the bottom of the totem pole, one way or another. And I don't know that we know exactly what the complexity of this structure is, but we're dealing with an Army now, and the same thing is true of the other forces, of which is a paid profession, no longer a draft one way or another. Of course, the other thing that is misleading is so many Guard and Reserve units are called to extended active duty for fairly long periods of time. Goes into the mix that's there. So I don't know. My druthers would be to refer this, get some expertise into the position, in order to draft a
Ainsley, are you
resolution
making a
that
motion?
deals
to-
with it.
Ainsley, are you making a motion to refer? If so, to whom?
Yes, I'll move to refer it to the NEC meeting in February, to give an opportunity to bring a total resolution of information.
Is there a second to the motion to refer? There is a second to the motion to refer. That is debatable. Anyone wishing to discuss the motion to defer? If not, I do see, okay.
I totally and completely am against referring this. These kids need help now. February, they're still going to need help. It's going to be even worse.
Thank you,
Stop kicking the can down the road.
thank you. Next speaker.
I
This is
concur
on-
with the previous speaker.
I'm sorry, this is on the motion to defer, not on the underlying.
Jerry Alperstein. I concur with the previous speaker against the motion to defer.
Thank you. Next speaker on the motion to defer. On the motion to defer, not the underlying motion.
I concur with the two previous speakers. You should not kick this can down the road. We're having enough problems in our service now, and they're being fixed slowly. This is one major problem that's not being fixed.
Thank you. On the motion to defer or refer to the policy, to the NEC. Those in favor of referring to the NEC, please raise your hand. I see two hands up. Those opposed to it is defeated. Let's move the underlying motion at this time. Erwin,
Burke. Well, I agree that certainly junior enlisted people are underpaid. I have to agree also with Bob Nussbaum. Let me give you an example of what he was telling you. And first of all, I don't know where we got the idea that enlisted people have to buy their own uniforms. They're not buying all, they still get an issue first, and then there's additional uniforms. But the bottom line is this. The bottom line, but before we get to that, the bottom line is, and to go to speak to what he was saying, an E5, that's what we're looking at, up to E5. An E5 with over 6 years service makes $3,001.50 per month. An E6 makes $3,254. So if you raise that E5 up a couple $100, he's now at the level or above the level of the E6 pay. So you now have to raise the E6 pay. The E7 is only getting $500 more than the E6 is getting. So you have to raise his pay because that'll keep going up. I agree that we're looking at people that are being underpaid. I think certainly $3,000 for an E5 with $36,000 a year, for example, with 6 years of service is too low. However, we also have to look at the entire structure, I think, of the entire military pay structure. Because if we go look at E5 going up a couple $100, they're now at the level of the E6. So the E6 has to go up, the E7 has to, everyone starts going up.
any further discussion? Any further discussion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. First of all, they get $40,000. That's not a one-time payment. That's spread out over their enlistment. And the enlistment usually would be a 6-year enlistment. So it's 6 into 40,000. That's number one. And number two, the previous speaker said that they get initial issue. They pay for that initial issue.
Let us, Jason, please continue. Speak, if you can stand, fine. If not, from there, your voice will carry. Okay. No further discussion. We've discussed it into the ground. There is, no one is going, that I can hear, will add anything at this moment. Those as amended so that we add SNAP and other assistance and change the word lower to junior. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I believe, abstentions? Passes. The next one we're doing is now called Securing Missing Military Records. And let me read it because there are a few changes. Whereas it is frequently necessary to secure records from the Department of Defense in order to receive veterans benefits, and whereas the Department of Defense records were and are stored in several central repositories, and whereas there was a fire in the St. Louis repository in July 1973 in which many records were completely destroyed, and whereas as a result of the destruction of these records, numerous veterans cannot prove their service and are thus denied veterans benefits to which they are entitled, and whereas the quagmire exists through no fault of the veteran, therefore the Jewish War Veterans of the USA calls upon the Department of Defense and Veterans and Affairs to accept affidavits from the veterans or their heirs whose records were destroyed in the fire in St. Louis repository or under other conditions beyond the control of the veteran as proof of service, and thereby extend to the veteran the full extent of veterans benefits available. Discussion. We changed the name, yes, Securing Missing Military Records. Discussion. Seeing none. Jason? Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Helene? Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, as corrected and amended. Those, Jay, comments in the hall. No further discussion? Those in favor as corrected, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Passes. Security American Nonprofit Organization Against Terrorism Act of 2019. If you'll take a look at the fourth whereas, we must recognize that not all individuals, we use the word individuals, come to this country to engage in terroristic activities. Please make that change. Discussion. Seeing none, those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Sexual assault in the military. Basically, every year we bring up something of this nature. However, the DOD did the latest study of 20,000 anonymous service members. And we've realized now there's a typo on the third line down. The word should be filed, not filled. The numbers come out of the DOD's own study. Discussion? Yes. No. No. There's a high percent against men on men as well. Discussion, he's seeing none. Those in favor? Those opposed? Passes. Suicide prevention. Third, whereas there has been a significant increase. The word increase needs to be inserted. Discussion. Basically what that asks is that those states that now fund suicide prevention not replace federal funds with state or state funds with federal funds or whatever, but that the rate or the level of funding increase with the use of federal funds. Discussion. Seeing none, those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Survivors' benefits. I believe as written. Discussion. You don't get home in person. We'll take a 30-second break. Survivor benefit plan. Discussion. Discussion. Seeing none. Those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Taxing of combat pay. One or more states taxes combat pay the full amount, even though the person is in harm's way. You'll take a look on the third whereas. These individuals are in harm's way, HARM apostrophe S. Make that typo correction. Discussion. Jay, you gotta stand if you can, If not, your voice is loud. That's not the issue. That's not the issue, though. That's not the question. Further, any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Opposed? Passes. Veterans Courts. We've taken the second therefore, and for grammar purposes, we made that a moreover. Furthermore, you're right, thank you. Any changes, any discussion? In some states, it's called Veterans Courts, in others, it's called Veterans Diversionary Program. It basically gives the veteran an opportunity for alternative resolution of their problems. It's up to the various states to develop it in their own fashion. Some states do it on A, B, C. Others do it X, Y, Z. The bottom line is the veteran has a chance at a second bite at the apple to pick him, her, itself up and fly right. Each state is different. In Pennsylvania, each district is different. And that's 150 some odd variations on a theme. New Jersey has a combined judicial system, so there's only 21 possible options. Discussion. Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Passes. Last one for today is the Veterans Expedited TSA Screening. We've changed that ever so slightly to Veterans Expedited TS Screening for disabled veterans. For disabled veterans. There are two bills pending, one in the House, one in the Senate. I'm being told that there are slight variations. So let's review the legislative system very 30-second-ish. If there was a single bill or identical bill in both houses that passed, they would go to the president. Where there is any difference in the bills that pass both houses, they then go to a committee, joint legislative committee. They get reported out, ultimately, hopefully by compromise. They then go as identical bills in both houses. They get passed and then they put on the president's desk. Any questions on the resolution as proposed? Seeing none, those in favor? Those opposed? Abstention? Hearing none. Again, tomorrow morning, we're back at 10:30 in the same room. We will be addressing two different resolutions, DACA and separation at the border. That gives us approximately 1 hour each. Thank you. That gives us 1 hour each, more or less. Again, anyone who wishes to come will be able to speak. Only members of the committee can vote. So if you're on the committee and you want to be heard and vote, show up. If you're not on the committee and you want to be heard, show up. We will be there until noon, I believe, Mr. Commander. Thank you very much for allowing me to make this report.
As usual, a stellar job. We have one more item of business before we adjourn for the day. Matt Millen from California has a resolution to present to the floor.
I was Matthew Millen, Post 118, Department of California. I was unable to get these to the Resolutions Committee before the deadline, and Michael indicated that he would not consider them because they weren't submitted before the deadline. So I'm presenting them to the floor and ask that they be considered on Wednesday at the third business session. So I have two. One relates to veteran service organizations being able to meet on VA property. And the second one has to do with opposition to the California Department of Education anti-Jewish ethnic studies curriculum. I've provided copies. If you don't have some, let me know and I'll give you a copy, and hopefully we can consider this on the next business section on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. There being no further, yes, Jerry.
Matt, I would ask that you consider
Jerry,
that-
I think that since this is going to be worked out at the next meeting, you can take that
No,
in
no,
private.
but it's important that having a resolution directly about the West LA, might you want to reconsider rewording it for all VA facilities?
That's what I did at the end. I didn't say, this is what they did.
Okay, okay, all right.
Good. Please rise. Officer of the day, please close the altar. We stand in recess until 1:30 tomorrow afternoon. Everybody have a good evening. If anybody lost a pair of Capital One sunglasses, they're up here. Don't forget this evening's activities, folks. We have, where is it on here? We have a film later this evening on West Point that you should find very interesting. What room is that? In the Magnolia Room at 7-ish. So please, that's a good film. I've seen it, and I think you'll find it very worthwhile.
Hey guys, listen up for just a second, please. Your current national commander is trying to give you some information you might like to hear.
Only if they want to. We got a film this evening around 7 o'clock in the Magnolia Room, West Point. Really a good film. If you haven't seen it, please show up for that. And the rest of the activities of the evening. Enjoy, have fun, and we'll see you later.